Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Open Orphan Investor presentation. And my apologies for being just a little bit delayed in starting this evening. Throughout this presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position, given the number of attendees on the call today, to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via your Investor Meet Company dashboard, and we will send you an email to notify you when they are ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we would like to submit the following poll, and if you could give that your kind attention, we would be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand over to Cahill Frill, Chairman from Open Orphan. Good evening to you, Cahill.
Mark, thank you very much, and apologies to everybody waiting. We had a slight technical issue based here in our London office, and for some reason Google Chrome didn't appear to be updated. But anyway, let's get on. Presentation tonight hopefully will be quite a lot of Q&A update. I know investors wondered haven't been doing as many presentations before, but bear in mind we've been in a very active period. We've been involved in some very sensitive trials, particularly the vaccine COVID trial, and we're also getting near our last year end accounts publication. So there's a reason for the lack of news flow and with the spin-outs. But look, I'll try and do a very comprehensive update. There is questions being submitted, but I also have 40 pre-submitted questions which I'd like to go through. So I'll go into the slides. Let me give a quick high-level summary where we are, take you through the slide, talk people through where we are with this strategy demerger of the first of our spin-outs. I know you've been waiting, but we're getting close, as I say. Are we nearly there, Daddy? Yes, we are getting very close. So first of all, let's talk about where we are between now and the year end. I've always said there's a couple, 2, 3, 4, but I actually think between now and Christmas, I'm not doing my job if I haven't spun off, probably have dividend species related activities between now and Christmas, but not 4, but possibly 5. And what are they? The first one, we've got shareholder approval, and then we got court approval to spin off the non-core assets we actually own 100%. That's primarily the immune suppressor modulator. And why did we go through that process? We went through that process basically, bear in mind we absorbed 2 companies, hVIVO and Venn. Neither made a profit in their life. They've been in business for 20 years. And we're very clearly firmly profitable. We made it very clear Q4 last year was profitable, and this year is certainly firmly profitable, will be profitable throughout the year. So as a result, to pay dividends, as a result, we had to go to the courts to seek the creation of distributable reserves. So here forward, we can now pay dividends, and we can, more importantly, we can share and hand back to you, the shareholders, an interest in the non-core assets via dividend species, and I'll explain that in more details. So we have what are these 4 or 5 assets? The 4 or 5 assets is the non-core pharma assets, and I think the cat's out of the bag there. That's probably, we'll come to minutes. It's a pool bag or something like that, and we'll come to that in a minute. We've also the data business that is non-core, and we don't see reason why we should be holding on within the business. That's got the patent disease in motion, and between now and Christmas, hopefully a lot sooner, that will move along and be handed back as a dividend species. Prep Pharma, been around for quite a while and a bit, and yes, that's hopefully in the more, not long term, more imminent weeks rather than months box. And our old friend Immutex, again, well underway, and again, that has to come back via dividend species use. And the last thing, I've made it very clear, I'm very keen to increase my stake in buy shares. As you know, my lockup ends at the end of June. People are a bit worried, but I can reassure, not alone, I'm not selling shares. The only time I can probably buy shares, and clear this with our Nomad, would be around the publication of the annual accounts. So rest assured, that'll be the open period when I can buy shares. So I can absolutely assure you, I will be buying some shares around the publication of the annual accounts, so that will happen. And then if I'm buying shares and I'm not getting money off the table, then hey, around sometime later this year, if we're building up cash, wouldn't it be nice to pay all ourselves a cash dividend? So hence the reason I see not 4 but 5 reasons to go back to shareholders this year and give them something and no particular reason to go back and ask you shareholders for anything called placings or money. So let's see where that all goes. What other things high level do we need to talk about? Publications, annual accounts. People want to know when are they coming. The company has been around for almost 15 years. It always publishes accounts around the end of June. So we'll stick to that. So the last days in June, we'll publish accounts. I would guide you, please don't. This is last year's annual accounts. Don't be getting excited. There's nothing, somebody says, like nothing much to see here. It'll be confirming we've integrated both business. Bear in mind, we only got our hands on hVivo in January, early February last year. So we integrate the business. But the big thing in the strategy accounts for last year we'll publish is that it's firmly profitable in Q4. And being a services company, no more of this big investment. Once you go profitable, you stay firmly profitable. So you'll see that. People are asking, will we be given revenue guidance, profit guidance? Like the brokers have certain figures out there. And I think we'll be given some guidance that won't disappoint, but we'd like the guidance in whatever we're given for this year. We're in the business of trying to under promise and over deliver. So all they say, let's wait, get those published. You'll be glad to see I'll be buying a few shares. And that means I ain't selling shares anytime soon in the company. I'm looking forward to getting my dividend species myself around these range of assets. So we'll cover that. And then the big one is, look, I want to reassure we're not a COVID stock. And I keep repeating, we're not a COVID stock, because you've seen the COVID stocks on AIM have gone up. And a lot of them have come back down. 90% of our business is non-COVID. For instance, we're now starting malarial challenge studies. Never done those before. There's about 47 different products around the world being developed for malaria. First time ever. We're signing up contracts, hopefully, in that space. There's a huge amount of flu work. hVivo only ever did 1 or 2 flu studies, random years. I'd be surprised we don't sign up 4 or 5 this year. Likewise, given that we're in post-pandemic, there's a huge interest now in looking out for asthma, trying to treatments for asthma, and all those other RSV, RVs, HRV, all those respiratory diseases. So we're in a very lucky space. The world is spending a lot of money on respiratory diseases. It's been somewhat a Cinderella industry for quite a long time, but yes, we're going to have a very fast-growing, substantial business that's non-COVID related. But let's not forget about COVID. It's a very important part of our businesses last year. And look, the characterization study is well underway and they're all free. We won't be announcing the big 10 million deals until we get that finished. But I know people are a bit disappointed when they saw us announce a Wellcome Trust 3 million deal some weeks ago. Well, that is only the new variants, as we all know. The new variants are around and appearing. So we're preparing, we're being paid very handsomely by Imperial and Wellcome. We're the only people in the world can grow those new variants successfully to GMP standard. And then there'll be more challenge models done on those. So that's what it says, that look, and on the back of that, there will be very substantial work on that. It took a little longer with all these regulatory approval, but that is well underway, and there will be, I'd imagine, substantial COVID announcements over the summer. But more importantly, we noticed, and I'm sure we all noticed, yesterday was the first day since the pandemic started, not a single person here in the United Kingdom died of COVID in over a year. So that's pretty good. So that shows the vaccines are working. But guess what? There's going to be new vaccines, booster vaccines every year. So this issue is being cured, but there's going to be an awful lot more work. New vaccines every year. And where do you test them? We're one of the few people can test them. So, and then this Christmas, the UK government have led the world. I think it was the only country in Europe that had no deaths yesterday. That was because the vaccine rollout. Europe is catching up, but guess what? I imagine you've seen the establishment of the UK antiviral task force, which is similar to the vaccine task force, and that again is a space, we're the world leader in the testing of not alone vaccines but antivirals. So let's watch out for progress there. I'd imagine the UK government will want to lead the world in having the first people in the world to have a lot of antivirals available this winter, because we all know not everybody's going to take the vaccine. There's always going to be people for host of reasons he won't take it. And guess what happens if there's another wave comes around Christmas? Coronavirus is a winter disease, and the view would be don't overplan your Christmas holidays, because there probably will be another wave this Christmas. Nobody will die, nobody will go into hospital as long as they've been vaccinated. But those who don't get vaccinated, they'll probably need antivirals. So that's where I think the British government are ahead of the world again in sourcing antivirals. So that's kind of a summary of the main points I'm going to bring into the deck at the moment and go through it. I'm also, but the next piece I'd really like to just clarify, because with the spin-outs, particularly the first one, we have to set up a series of companies, and I think there's been a lot of confusion, discussion on social media and bulletin boards about a vehicle called Poolbag Pharma Limited, and what's going on there, and what are the development IP assets. So look, very similar to debunk some of the myths and just make it very clear. First of all, what's going in there? It's not Immutex. That's been spun off on its own. That is a standalone. It's not Prep Pharma. All that's gone into Poolbag Pharma, that's where we've got the court approval, is the non-core assets. You and me, we own 100%. So those primary assets are the immune suppressor modulator, HV001, and some other assets that are in the basement, basically. We're not putting any other assets in there because we've gone for a process called HMRC, Emergency Revenue Collection Service, prior approved strategy demergers. That means when we hand you shares, particularly for this first one, and myself, none of us want to get, you get a dividend, you usually pay income tax, but a strategy demerger that's got HMRC prior approval is we're demerging assets you already own. So there will be no income tax. So anybody who gets shares, all of you here tonight, if you're still here at the spin-out date, which is not months, it's weeks away, you won't be getting a tax bill. We will be asking you to lock in up to 9 months, maybe a little less. We try and get them. But when you get the shares in your hand, and if you decide to sell them, you will have no income tax bill. So that's very important. But to avail of that strategy demerger, we have to set up a series of vehicles. And one of them is this vehicle called Poolbag Pharma Limited. It can't be owned by the company. So, hey, presto, you see some of us, myself and the management team, with a large shareholder in it, we'll be diluted to infinity and beyond. We'll end up with a very small single-digit percentage in that vehicle. You, the shareholders, Open Orphan, will own the vast majority of that vehicle, close to pretty well above 90-95%. But do bear in mind, we'll have a little incentive for myself and some of the management team to really drive that. I'll also have a stake through my Open Orphan stake, but I want to make that clear. There's nobody in the management team will own a big piece. That's just how it's structured. It's a separate vehicle. The assets goes in, and then the shareholding we're sitting we get reduced to almost like Buzz Lightyear, to infinity and beyond. We will have a tiny carried interest to incentivize us in the management team to really drive that vehicle. So hopefully that clarifies what's going on there, and that is and it's prior approved. We have HMRC written approval that you will not get a tax bill on getting that dividend species. When will the distribution in species happen, and what will the recorded date? Look, we held a general meeting to do it. That has taken place. We have the court approval. We will be writing to the shareholders at the appropriate time, and there will be an RNS. So all they say, watch that space. It's not months away. Another question we'd like to, when will we know about the development IP assets beyond HV, or what else will go in? Because of the strategy demerger, we'll put no assets in pre, other than what you and me, we all own. So, and then immediately post IPO, we have an active plan in vending quite a bit. That's a bad word, vend, other company. Vend in, as if we'll put assets in, and we've a lot of them lined up. So it's going to be a very, very busy, a bit like the earlier days of Open Orphan so it's going to be a very, very busy stock, that one. We're going to have lots of activity. We'll have a new CEO. I will be chairman. I like being chairman, in that you can be chairman of two companies and drive them. I'm here in our London office full-time now, have been for most of the last year. And so that's a question. There will be lots more assets being vended into that vehicle. But let's get the IPO done. Let's raise the money. Question people ask, will ordinary shareholders be able to participate in the expected fundraise of, let's say, called the first spin out? Then we'll come to the second one, third one, and the fourth one. We will do our best. It's not going to be a big, massive IPO process, but I think the process is you'll all have a fairly large stake, 90+% the day one. So that's a pretty good start. It's your assets, you own them. We will probably work closely. We're going to try and give a fairly substantial allocation to primary bid. So get your primary bid accounts wound up. If we go out to you and make it an open offer or even a follow-on one, an open offer, that can endanger the process. Again, the strategy demerger. A lot of these things are timed. So being perfectly honest, it's going to be difficult to make a direct offer to all shareholders because we're giving you the shares you already own in it. So you're going to own shares in this vehicle free of charge. So hopefully people understand, but we will give a large allocation to primary bid. So say, and that vehicle will be raising money because I think we all know oil and water don't mix. So you can't develop pharmaceutical assets in a profitable services company. Open Orphan now is a boring, profitable, fast-growing services company doing consultancy work for all the large pharma companies. Virtually every large pharma company in the world, you name the top 15, we're working with them. They don't like seeing us developing our own assets as a competition to them. They don't mind if we vend them across into a sister company and it's a standalone. So that vehicle, we will raise money. It's a well-trodden path to stand them up. And if you just look at, I know some of you said, where did Cathal get this bullshit idea of you could create $1 billion in value? We'll just look at renal EKF. EKF spun off Renal Analytics AI. Not too many years ago, 18 months ago, market cap today 850 million sterling. They then in turn spun off Fujitsu, market cap today 114. And then just this week, Trellis Health spin off 60 million. So the last time I counted, 850, 114 and 16. You have $1 billion sterling in value alone, plus your EKF shareholding. So I'm setting a high target for ourselves, the managing team. There's something wrong if we don't create very substantial assets from these spin-off assets, and we've taken our time to do them properly. We don't want to, and I think the preference for all these non-core assets is the public stock markets. Why give them away to a big trade player who just gives you a final price? Put them in the public vehicle, get shares for them, and hand them back to you, the shareholders who rightfully own these assets, and that means every one of them: Immutex, PrEP, the pharma assets, and or a good old, let's see where, so that we'll do our best in that. So hopefully that has debunked any questions. I see a few more questions coming in here is regards how that process, I think I've answered quite a few of them. Let me, for any of you who's new, take you through, we're now in minute 17. I'm kind of under pressure to do this all within an hour and 10 minutes. But let me very briefly take you through the slide deck. I think you've all seen it already, but very, very briefly. Management team, not going to bore you. Primarily, we've grown them internally. I don't like building up a big, expensive management team. You see, the only new face that came in there is John Sheridan, and he worked for the competition SGS. As you know, we pinched a few of the competition. That was the Chim Agents folks. They're in working. People say we haven't announced. We must do an announcement. That's all done. But the rest, everybody there has been working in the company. Keep the board very small, 3 non-execs. That's more than enough. So, and look, the management team of our first spin-off, that we call it, sounds like it's pull bag if one wants to know, going by those. But we'll have a proper independent CEO, and I think we'll be getting somebody who's done this more than once before. I say I quite like the old chairman role because I can crack the whip and bark loud and make things happen and have my stake because I've vested interest. And I think we might have one more of the Open Orphan people on the board with me, but then we'll have 3 new independent directors and the CEO. So it'll be a standalone company, but day one, you folks will own over 90% of that vehicle. We'll do a fundraising, so you'll drop down a bit, but you'll have a very substantial stake in it. I'm not going to bore you. We've seen this. That's the usual stuff we've had. Business overview. Look, we've put the London office, the Paris office, Netherlands. And look, virtually every one of the large pharma companies in the world are our customers. Good old DARPA, that's the American Government Defense and Research. We even deal with Uncle Sam. So virtually every one of the large vaccine companies are customers. And bear in mind, the really interesting part is that the lineage of our London office goes back to 1945 when the UK government opened the Salisbury Flu Clinic. So within the company, there's a huge history of infectious diseases. Business progression. Look, we've seen it, lots of wins. We haven't made any big announcements last month or two for obvious reasons. We want to finish the COVID-19 carry. It's world renowned, but as soon as that finishes up in the next couple of weeks, it's nearly there. You'll see some publication about it. You'll see then the COVID work kicking in. And I know there's been lots of questions. Well, okay, if everybody's been vaccinated, how do you test them? Well, our friends in Oxford, I think there was something in the last day or two, have started a challenge study, but it's they've given themselves a year to do it, doing 2 or 3 volunteers at a time. We prefer to do 10 or 15 at a time to test previously infected people. We don't necessarily have to always look for COVID naive volunteers. So I'll say rest assured there is plenty of COVID work there, but I keep emphasizing a huge part of our business going forward is the respiratory disease, the malaria. That's bacterial, to be honest with you, but we can do challenge studies in it, but it's the flu, the influenza, the asthma, the HRV, and the RSV, which it's the gift that keeps on giving as a piece of work. May 21, I know people are a bit disappointed. Oh, we're that little deal. 3 million now is a little deal. We'll just watch this space over the next month or two. You'll see the double-digit deals shouldn't be too far away. So, look, hopefully people understand we haven't been banging out. We listened to your shareholders. I think you got a bit pissed off at us. Every week, Venn and Paris or Venn and Breda announcing another 500,000 or 1 million deals. So unless they do a deal now, 1.5 million or 2 million, we won't announce them because they're non-consequential. But look, bear in mind the Paris office, the Breda office are doing good deals, and that's why we've reduced the nose flow. I got a lot of flack earlier this year, Cathal failure, too many presentations. So bear in mind, I'm trying to listen to the shareholders, do less, and maybe make them more comprehensive like tonight, because I'm going to answer at least 40 questions that have been pre-submitted. So I think rather than doing a 20-minute presentation, 10-minute Q&A, why not do a full hour Q&A? I can probably give you more details. I think you know to do challenge studies. It's a pretty cool way of testing things, bringing people in, make them sick, test a drug, make them well, send them home. It's a pretty neat, but not many people do it around the world. Really importantly, bear in mind COVID is here. There's going to be more waves. So we're one of the few people in the world who've got, this is not our product. This is Codagenics. It's a nasal spray. We've finished that process, but we're in the space of testing nasal COVID-19 vaccines, and that's a nice place to be. The future of most vaccines, not just COVID, will be nasal spray. That one little spray can do about 50 people, while then one injection queuing up. So you'll see and hear lots more about that. We're expanding our volunteer recruitment. I know some of you are worried, can we get enough volunteers for COVID studies? I think we will. And likewise, we've expanded in a low-cost manner. We converted the Costa Coffee shop but that doesn't look like a Costa Coffee shop to me now. We actually do all our screening there. We're even trying to advance that a lot of that screening will move online and do with third parties. We have a Manchester walk-in screening centre. And we have expanded our footprint to Whitechapel Hotel. Now it's a Whitechapel clinic. It's 19 beds directly across the road from QMB. Very important. And then we have the Royal Free, the 11th floor. People keep asking, will we have a fourth? Well, let's see. Let's make sure these 3 facilities are booked out for us for 18 months. And as the beauty of our business, we do need to keep that book, not 12, but fill the pipe 18 months out and are ready. We're even looking at studies of the military going into 2023. So bear that, it's a nice business. Not alone studies for next year, but literally in contract negotiations for 2023. So I want people to reassure. The beauty about being the world leader in something is having people have to wait. And we're telling people, hey, we can't do it. But bear in mind, pharma take 10 years to develop some of these products. So they're already happy to book us up for 2023 and 2024. Yeah, disease in motion. Look, we've again trying to run and do a quickie deal. Earlier this year, thought, could we sell the whole data to one of the big ones and they could do it? Or could we do a series of little deals? What we're doing here, and this is definitely a spin out now, so we're not going to do too many announcements because like spin outs, you got to put them together. There's a lot of work. So disease in motion will be a non-core asset as a standalone business. And I say I would guide you back to something like Renal Analytics or Vigici to see what's going to happen here. It would be a wonderful standalone business. And I said to you, all these non-core assets will be done back as dividend species by Christmas, and let's see where that goes. But rest assured, that's really exciting. I see a lot of questions in on that one, so let me walk you through the questions when we come to Q&A now in a moment. Global awareness. Look, we've just been very lucky. We've taken two little companies, hVivo and Venn, who never made money in their life. We kind of struggled. Not really sure why they struggled. They're in a good sectors, but look, we got lucky. And world attention has focused on what we're doing here in Whitechapel. And look, bear in mind that the world attention has focused on the United Kingdom, what we've done here in the United Kingdom. Getting the vaccines, getting them committed. There's enough vaccines in order for 10 vaccines for every person in the United Kingdom, because what happened there was nobody knew what happened. Most of the vaccines would work. 12 months ago, people were betting, will any of them work? So we got lucky. So I think the reality is the world has been looking at the United Kingdom as the leader in the rollout of vaccines. And trust me, around the turn of the year, the world will be looking at the United Kingdom. Wow, you got the antivirals right as well. Sometimes governments and countries tend to be slow. So I think antiviral will something we'll be hearing a lot of. An antiviral is something you take if you've got sick. If you get very bad influenza, you take a pill called the Tamiflu. It's an antiviral, and it makes you feel a little better and reduces the viral load. Anti kills virus. Vaccine gives you protection. The antiviral you take when you've already got sick. So I think, look, it's very clear. The UK government has set up an antiviral task force. So that means they mean business, and hopefully we're being in business with them. But say, let's watch that space. Going to be a lot of talk now on these 40 questions of spin-outs, but in summary, potential spin-outs are in progress. The spin-out and the IPO of the wholly owned development IP assets, their assets you and I own today, includes a phase 2 ready, repurposed immune modulator for severe influenza. We can maximize the shareholder value and accelerate development of these assets in a standalone vehicle. The really important part is ORF shareholders own these assets. So why should you pay tax and being paid them as a dividend? So they'll be received a tax neutral dividend species with a maximum of a 9-month lockup. So I think that's a fair way to do it. We're giving you your asset back into your own hands in a separate company. And we've got the court approvals for the reduction in capital that allows a dividend species. Dividend can either be cash or in species means something. In this case, we will be getting shares in another public company. It allows also, really importantly, I started this saying, I think there's potential for 5 payouts this year between now and Christmas, but it allows for future dividends payout, both cash, allows us to buy back shares, lots of things. So that's what's going on there. Here is our 4, and I keep saying we should add a little 5th. We can always pay a cash dividend now. We're cash positive. So really the first one, like we've talked enough about, the spin-off of non-core farm assets. We already own those. It was in license, and there's a lot of patents and things. The data business, we know what it is in, but don't forget, in there is the world's largest database of infectious disease progression data. I'll not bore you with PrEP. PrEP is a small deal, but we would hope to put that into a NASDAQ company. It'll be probably the same idea to lay down roads so the dividend species will hold. And if the IPO goes well and that, whatever happens, then we're looking at all of these vehicles. If you sell them today, you take it. But if we can get public stock, then you've got something to hold tight and see where it goes. And our good old friend Immutex that, hey folks, look, if we can't do something with that in the middle of a pandemic, with the next pandemic, look, the reality is for the scientists, they think COVID is cracked. The vaccine deals with it, it licks it. Yesterday, not a single death in the entire United Kingdom, first time in over a year from COVID, and bearing that's from people who had a COVID test in the previous 28 days. That's pretty cool. However, not everybody is taking the vaccine, and next year there'll be a requirement for new vaccines. And flu is not going away. Bear in mind the issue with flu, there's been no influenza for the last 18 months. People are washing their hands and social distance, but the big worry is the next pandemic, we need to get ready, prepared for if there's going to be flu issues. So unfortunately this year, we're going to learn to live with these things, and life will return to normal, but there will be epidemics and that'll flare up here and there. So look, there's something badly wrong, and if we can't do something with Immutex in the coming months, that certainly would be a big slap in the wrist. It's a what have you, and it's a universal flu vaccine, it's a universal mosquito vaccine. So hey folks, if now I do say we're only 49% shareholders, you, me, and everybody else. There is the SEEK Group and now the renamed as of Conservia 51. They're kind of driving that ship, but don't worry. As chairman, I do bark and shout a lot, so our friends at Mutex know what's got to be done, and we're not going to wait too long. So again, that should go back to you as a dividend species. Oops, we jumped one there. Back up. Oops, where do we go? Appendix. Yes, in conclusion. So really much in summary, this sounds a bit old, but last year we were firmly profitable, operationally profitable in Q4 2020. We are the world leader in test of vaccines, but don't forget, antivirals as well. The next 10 years will be the decade of vaccines and infectious diseases. That's absolutely. When infectious diseases would mean influenza, RSV, RV, and malaria. It's an infectious disease. That's why it's not a respiratory disease, a bacterial. Antimicrobial. So they're all worried about the big bacterial breakout. So that's where we're working on antibacterial issues. So it's a really interesting space we're in, and it's only growing. And I keep emphasizing, I haven't mentioned the word hardly all night, COVID. COVID's important, but I've always said it's a 10% of our business. We're in 90% non-COVID, but there is big COVID deal to be done as well. So let's not overlook that. We have an extensive pipeline of challenge studies. I've said we have a whole range of them now, including malarial, antibacterial, all that good stuff. Disease in Motion digital platform is now patented, but it is work in progress that we will disappoint if we don't spin it off. And as you know, anything we control, we'll make it happen. Finally, we're monetizing non-core assets, and as I say, spin-outs in progress. And where do we go? Questions and answers. So what I might do...
Shall I just give you a small pause, Carl?
Sure.
Just to cause have a drink of water or whatever. But ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. But just while Carl takes a few moments to review those investor questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your Investor Meet Company dashboard, and we will send you an email to notify you when that's ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company, and immediately after the presentation has ended, you'll be redirected to the opportunity to provide feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. Cahill, I haven't given you very long, and I know you've got plenty of questions that were pre-submitted. So perhaps if I could hand back to you for the Q&A, and just to remind you that the questions that have been submitted during the live event in that Q&A tab, if I could ask you to read the questions out and who they're from, and give a response where it's appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you whenever you're done.
Sure. But what I've done here, Louis, I think in our Walbrook PR company, very kindly tablet, so he's put together here. I've got 40 questions that came in before tonight, but we'll answer some of them as well. And he's them broken down 40 questions. We've got 2 questions with the company's finances and investors. We've 4 about the share price, thought to be more. We've 5 about the business operations non-COVID. We have 6 questions about business operations and COVID. We have 6 about data. We have 3 about disposal of non-core assets. We have 8 about the future expansion and strategy, and 6 about the nature of current and future market opportunity. And we have our final 2 about the demerger. So 40. Hopefully, I have a habit of talking too fast, but let me try and skim through these. I'm also watching here. I can see the questions coming up, and I think quite a few of these are answered in this, and what Louis will do as I answer them, he'll drop them off. So any ones I haven't answered in the 40, again, I'm conscious that I don't want to be on all night, but we'll try and run through these as quick as I can. Okay. Company finances. With what should be the burgeoning cash pile, when can investors expect a dividend from this, as it seems no big capital expenditure is needed? Could the cash be used for organic investment, acquisition, or funding for spin-off? Look, the cash is growing. We are spending a small bit of it of knocking those non-core assets into shape. As you've seen, there's a lot of work going on with Pullbag. We're in the process of getting the CEO and the management team, a lot of patent work. So a small bit of our cash pile is going in to the 2 non-core assets we own. We'd be wrong not to use some of that. So it is building up. And look, as I said, I am absolutely buying shares as soon as I can, and the only period I gather I can buy them is around the publication of the accounts at the end of the month. So if I'm buying shares, a little cash dividend at some stage later this year would be rather nice. So it'd be remiss of us not to see if we can pay some cash dividend back. So that's where we are in that regards. But we're not losing money, and we don't intend raising money. And let's see, obviously, trust us with that. Second question, when can we expect publication? I think we've done other accounts, end of the month. Question, will they contain turnover and profit guidance for 21? Yes. Very few companies are given formal guidance. There is broker notes out there. I think we'd like to do is put a very modest expectation for this year, and then later this year blow the lights out. So what I'd suggest to everybody, accounts will be published end of June. We may be quite busy in a few other things around then, so I will do my best to have a video or a proactive or an update on it. But what I'm trying to say is that it's clearly, the big thing is we've integrated the company. You'll see it's profitable for Q operation profit last year and firmly profitable this year. Some revenue guidance, some profit guidance, but we're not going to go be putting big high figures and give people massively. We'd like to substantially exceed whatever guidance we have out there. So we'll talk about that in a month then. Share price. You've mentioned, where is it? Sorry. You've mentioned Invesco are fully out. Is there another institution selling out that you know, or what would you put the drop in share price of the? Perfectly honest, we don't know. Invesco has gone below the notifiable thing. We gather they've gone out. What is happening, I think there's some people, there is a long history when you mention a share ex-dividend, it does drop off. I think, being perfectly honest, part of the reason the share price is dropping off, we had been announcing deals every month, every week. We've deliberately taken a policy of not announcing any small, have to be very significant deals. And we've a couple of very large, say, double-digit deals in the hopper. So I think give us a month or so, and let's see what happens there. So I don't think there's anybody major selling out. There's a good bit of trading, as you know, over the last month at several stages. Open Orphan was the most liquid stock on AIM, with over £4 or £5 million traded a day. So that's great. Yeah, we'd like to see it going, but look, let's watch that space. Somebody asked, where do you see the share price of 21, 22, and 25? I think, look, I've been a bold boy talking about share price. I think the task is now deliver the business, deliver the spin-offs, and let's see with the share price. And as the largest individual, the single largest shareholder, I want to see the share price growing. So, question, why has a spin-off had a negative? I think we've answered that. Look, spin-offs, there is a factor when you announce spin-offs. Sometimes people say, oh, we don't know, it's no good. So, but look, let's see where we go. Question, non-COVID, what demand can we expect as regards the antimicrobial influenza work you've highlighted in areas of interest, and what sort of contract costs you expect from other these types of human? Yeah, look, the non-COVID antimicrobial is underway. As said to you, we now have malarial challenge studies. We have new influenza. Influenza is becoming a very big part of work. We're signing asthma work. We haven't done that in years. So yeah, that's non-COVID, hugely important. Another question, can you tell us how far into the future each of the 3 clinics are booked? I think I covered it earlier. We're looking at 18 months, 2 years, and we've even people looking at slots 2 years out. Has the Zoom meetings some months ago progressed further with Chinese pharmaceutical companies? Right? Yeah, look, somebody says China hasn't gone away. There is a Cold War underway between our friends in the USA, possibly a bit of Europe, and our Chinese friends. We like dealing with China. They have a lot of money. We've got to be very careful. I'd be surprised if our Chinese friends don't do something with us. China has realized dishing vaccines out to South America and Africa is a great way of pissing off American friends, and it's a great way of getting friends in the developing world. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, pissing word. But anyway, the Chinese are upsetting some of the Western powers by handing out free vaccines. So there is an arms race between China and America. To a less, I think Europe's keeping out of it. Who can do fastest, better vaccines? They can try and nick our technology and everything else, but a big part of it is very few people in the world has ever done challenge that successfully. So we're trying to encourage our Chinese friends, pay us a big lump of money, 40 or 50 million, and we'll show you how to do it, and we'll hold your hand. So that's what we're doing. So yeah, Chinese conversations continue. And bear in mind, CasinoVac and all the Chinese, that they have vaccines and they need help get the next generation. They may not be as effective as some of the Western ones, but they need to develop more. Are the new challenge studies on stream that have been informed? Yeah, we said challenge studies, non-COVID, lots of them on stream, lots of them coming through. Another question, what are the likely next news for company news? I think we said there's going to be quite a bit of news flow. We've deliberately had a little bit of a quiet period as we be a bit tricky going into court approval, and we're all over the news. So bear with us. And again, and we're trying to only make very substantial. And I think more events like this where it can bring people up to speed over an hour rather than a short 20-minute session. Moving on to business operations, the 6 questions with COVID. I'll read them quickly. The UK is swiftly moving through age ranges now, and we have still not started the human challenge COVID. Will there be a problem? No. Will you look for foreign volunteers? No, I think that wouldn't go down very well for shipping foreign volunteers in. I think you've seen the Oxford study started to test efficacy of people with a challenge study who are ready, but Oxford is looking to spend a full year at it. I think we're looking to do things in months. So we don't visit a major problem at the moment. Another question, what is the demand for testing with the original agent developed, and are you moving on to a new variant? Will we have to wait for another strain before contracts are announced? No. We've the only working human challenge study in the world for testing vaccines, and that'll be keeping adjusted. There will be a need this winter, next year, and the following year to test existing vaccines against the new ones. And one of the simple ways to do it with our existing model in a human challenge, so that is fine. Another question, what is hVIVO's involvement with the Oxford reinfection challenge study? How is this valued? What strain is recently announced in the second challenge based on? Yeah, it's really interesting. Oxford is doing it. They got a lot of publicity, but that's the virus we grew. We give it to them. It's part of the vaccine task force paid us, so that's corrected. It's owned by the vaccine task force, but we were paid to grow it. We've rights to commercial and rights to use it. But like we're in a pandemic, so it's been shared, so Oxford's using. So it's great to see our friends. We have a very close relationship with our friends in Imperial, and now a burgeoning and growing relationship with our friends in Oxford. And it's nice to see them using our challenge agents that we grew, and we grew it in the Great Ormond Street Hospital facility using exclusively hVIVO staff. Carl, can you please give any guidance additional new COVID challenges? Well, the big one there is there will be antiviral challenge studies for COVID. So I'll say let's see where that goes in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a major part of the conversation piece this winter. If the UK can blow the lights out and lead the world in the regulatory approval of antivirals. Question 16. Are Open Orphan taking part in any government antiviral task force set up recently? Well, I think I've answered that. Question 17. When are you expecting the COVID-19 study to be completed, and is a challenge study to begin? Well, I think I've said that. That's imminently. Data. What is exactly? So data questions. What exactly is happening is question 18. What exactly happened to wearables licensing? Are we going to get done if and when the hook? Yeah, look, data, lots of work underway. It's patented. We're trying to build it as a standalone company. So rather than announce a whole series of deals and lose the value, people can come and it'll be recurring multi-year, 3-year contracts. It'll be there. Are all wearables that you previously mentioned stressed have been in talks are still very much at the table? How will any deal look like potential revenue per deal? That's, I say, we're trying to build a data and it's very much a standalone company, and that is very much work in progress. All the big wearables, but more importantly, the pharma companies around the world. There's really only 5 or 6 wearable companies. There's about 500 pharma companies. All of them will be getting data from us and we'll be making it available as that standalone company. Aside from interest in wearable companies, what interest has there been for data? Well, from pharma rare disease, i.e. your old company, Amrit. Absolutely, I said this. 5 wearable companies, and there's 500 pharma companies. All of them. Now, mind you, the wearable ones, we would like to get a licensing deal every time they use it. We get a click. So that is absolutely working contract. The beauty about it is we've the world's largest, probably the only proper infectious disease progression data. And bear in mind, every challenge study we do, we're adding to that. We're doing wearable studies, and all our studies, our friends, the volunteers in the Royal Free have our wearables. Our influenza study running at the moment, or RSV, the wearables. We are every week, every month, that database is growing exponentially. Are you still actually looking at 4th facility? Yeah, look, we're always looking for extra facilities, and again, let's watch that space. The really interesting part is we don't want to overly commit in facilities because then you've got to fill them. It's nicer to overfill and turn down work and get higher margins, but there's always room for a 4th facility. 23. When will you expect the revenue streams from the rare disease exceed that of the wearables? Well, look, the reality, the wearables will always exceed the rare disease. The rare disease revenues are small, but with the wearables and the rare diseases is bundled into that now standalone company we're putting together. Question 24, disposal of non-core assets. It seems quite clear you're most excited. You are most excited about the immune suppressor modulator spin out of the 3 non-core assets. Well, we've 4 now, I think, the last time I checked. Why is this exactly? Do you have in mind an AIM or NASDAQ? I think the cat's out of the bag. The immune suppressor is going on AIM. Hopefully, we haven't formalized that, so I'll get slapped in the wrist if I say, but look at the reality. If you look at the public announcements, the plan would be to have the immune suppressor on AIM pretty soon. Are there any further non-core assets in HV business? Like I spin off the big one, the elephant in the room is the data business and the disease and motion platform. So that will be spun out, and that's not going to be here at Christmas. It shouldn't take us too long. We'll get the whole team together. The team who's doing the IP, the immune suppressor modulator. We don't involve getting the whole gang again, roll them and get them going. Any updates in Metex, Conserve V, NASDAQ flotation time? I've got to stick out. Conserve V, get your skates on before. If you can't do the job, we'll do it for you. So yeah, that's work in progress. And somebody says, there's something bad wrong if our friends in Conserve V don't fairly quickly, imminently close that deal. Okay, so like we're in a pandemic, influenza, we've all seen during the week. Avian flu is back, bird flu, there's worries about flu and everything else. So Immutex is a flu and mosquito universal vaccine. So that is very much work in progress. And I think, we'll make sure, Poolbeg, we'll call it the immune suppressor, that we can deliver right away. The spin off the database we can absolutely deliver. Prep is pretty getting close, and our friends in Immutex will be breathing down their neck imminently as well. Question 27, future expansion strategy. Are you expecting to secure any other UK government or scientific establishment contracts? Are you in talks with any other government established to expand Open Orphan? Yeah, look, we're regularly in touch, but the beautiful, wonderful, the UK government is established in the United Kingdom as a world centre for vaccine infectious diseases, and there's lots of conversations. So I'd say it's a great place. I used to live in Dublin. I spend most of my time here in London. I wouldn't have moved that if I didn't think this is a cracking good place to build out our life science infectious disease. I don't see the Irish government giving us much business, so the British government has been very kind to Open Orphan. So that's why I'm here, and here in Whitechapel. Question 28. Are you constrained by the government, UK, and any potential suitors or companies given your desire to keep expertise and experience? Yeah, look, we've got to be careful. UK government wouldn't want to see us gobbled up by a Chinese company. I don't think anybody else would. But look, who knows? I don't think the UK government, they just want to see us growing, expanding, and providing a good service. What is the connection, I think I covered, between Open Orphan and Poolbeg data? Look, I say we're doing this as a tax-free, tax-neutral spin-off. We've to set up Poolbeg Pharma. It has to be temporarily owned by the directors. That large stake goes down to a minuscule. I'll end up with a small single-digit percentage. They'll probably be less than 5% between a few of the management team. That'll be an incentive. Look, I don't believe in taking big salaries out, but just to reassure people, once that spin-off is done, the stake that we're currently holding will go down to very low single digits. That's below 5%. I don't think any of our Open Orphan shareholders will grudge if myself and the team, and we're building out a team in there, will have a small equity slice. As always, I'll write a decent check myself to go in there, and I'll have my dividend species shareholding across from Open Orphan. Question 30, are Open Orphan still looking to expand the 4th clinic? I think I covered that, yeah. Always on the scout for a 4th or 5th clinic. Question 31, after the Chinese visit and interest in seeing Open Orphan, what level of investment uptake of service? Yeah, sorry, got distracted. Some of the staff leaving here. They're working late, checking on the boss, what he's doing in the office. Yeah, look, there's Chinese interest, substantial Chinese interest. It's that managing process to make sure they pay rather than borrow, nick, whatever. But the beauty about challenge studies is very much in the craft and the science and the knowledge of how to run them. And that's why very few people can do them successfully. Anybody can run one, but they usually don't get the results they want. So I think our Chinese friends who said, give us 30 or 40 or 50 million, we'll hold your hand for a year and show you how to do it. And none of our customers will be running off to China to test a vaccine. But lots of Chinese companies want to test their vaccines at home. So our belief is, why not teach them, show them how to do it, speed them up, and let them get at it. But 30, 40, 50 million sounds like a nice fee to me, and that's what we've been asking. Question 33. Are there any companies that you want to buy to complement Open Orphan company and spin-offs? Yeah, look, we're an aggressive company. We've got a strong share price. Who knows? Let's watch that space. If any of you want to come with a few suggestions. We get lots of approaches. Do you want to buy us? We get lots of approaches. Do you want to sell? Look, we're not in the habit of hanging around, so we're on to build this to an exciting business. So we're active. Bear in mind, I'm 57 this year. I started working 1981. This is over 41 years working. I started a bit young, but I did spend 15 years as a corporate finance guy buying and selling companies. So I always like looking at transactions in addition to driving the business. So spin-offs, add-ons, let's see. Question 34. Have any companies shown an interest in buying Open Orphan? In your opinion, how much it would cost them to purchase the company? Well, folks, when I put the original plan was take Venn, fix it, HVAVO, fix it, and sell a whole lot for 100 million. We thought we had a good price 12, 18 months ago. Well, I don't know about you, but there's none of us selling anywhere close to 100 million. And I think things have evolved on this idea of just quickly selling the company. Why not hand back $1 billion in value from these non-cores? If we sell the company, you can't be doing the non-cores. And who's know how many more non-core assets that we can do a spin-off? So, yeah, so I think let's not get obsessed anymore about selling out. There's an awful lot more growth to happen here. And I wouldn't be here working and living in Dublin, most in London most of the time, if I didn't see a huge amount more opportunity in front of us. What frightens shareholders, and I'm a shareholder all my life, been buying and selling shares in small Indian companies, is companies running out of cash and going to raise more money. So that's something we're not going to do. We're not going to run out of cash, and we're not going to raise more money. So that allows us to keep wind in our sails and keep that share price growing. Question 34, it's about the nature of the current and future market opportunities. So we have 6 about where we are in the future. Question 35, actually, can't read. 35, on many occasions you've talked about the current sweet spot of catch-up investment in antiviral and vaccines. We're now in year 2 of that cycle. Yeah, look, this has been the Cinderella industry. When we acquired HVAVO in January last year, my kids hadn't a clue what an antiviral was, the vague notion of a vaccine because they got it at school. They had no clue about antivirals. They had really no clue about how do you test vaccines. If you ask most kids around the world, they bloody hell they know what antivirals are. They know what vaccines, and they know how vaccines get tested. They get tested on humans. So yeah, we're in a sweet spot. It was a Cinderella industry. Infectious disease, vaccines, antivirals, no longer. Just look at Pfizer looking this year, taking 27 billion from their COVID vaccine. Pfizer never did more than single-digit billions from vaccines in recent years. So the vaccine world has gone from a 10 or 15 billion market to a couple of 100 billion. So let's say there's a few more years in this business yet. 36, do you view this on par of what might be thought through a super cycle? That's exactly, there was a super cycle in resources, lead, zinc, as the Chinese start to buy in 2000, expand 2001, 2 and 3. You had the copper, all of them went up. There's definitely a super cycle kicking off in infectious diseases. Not so much oncology work, not so much gene therapy, but bloody hell, a lot of vaccines, antivirals, monoclonals, our space, and somebody has to test them. And that's why we want to get better and better at testing them and spin off the non-core, do something really good. So yeah, I think there's quite a few more years, and look, it ain't finishing anytime soon. That's what I'd say. 38, with regards to intensity, if historic 10-year average annual investment trend is viewed as 1x, where do you see last year, this year, and 3 years' time? Well, we know if last year was 1x, this year has to be 3x, and 5, 6, 7, 8x as we go forward. So look, a tricky one. Last 2 questions, and then I'll try and tick them. These are pre-submitted questions. Demerger. When you announce dividend species for shareholders to register, when you announce a dividend species for shareholders to register at a given date, will that be the date you have passed on? Will that be the date when you get to one? I.e., will we still have a chance to buy or sell or be involved and execute by then? Yeah, look, there is a point that we have to announce to the market that we're now doing our dividend species distribution. That will be around the time whenever we're doing the spin-off. And I say that's not months away, that's weeks away. So there will be an announcement, and then the share price will trade almost like ex-dividend, or what do you call it, with dividend at dividend rate. So yeah, after that day, if you held an open orphan share, you will actually open another share in cat's out of the bag, in Poolbeg Pharma PLC, which would be nice. We bear with us. There will be a lock-in because, bear in mind, hold tight. If we can go anywhere close, we did in renal analytics, we would be disappointed if we get 2, 3, 4x in the first 9 months, and then people see if we keep constant news flow, do loads of exciting stuff. We want to stay along for the ride for a year or two, and we view those spin-offs. It's a year or two, so I believe don't sell too early. People sold at 15p, 20p, 25p. So I think on the spin-outs, the trick would be take some profit. I've always tell people take profit on the spin-outs, but hang in there. It's kind of each spin-out is an 18 months, 24 month cycle to get matching inflection. Question 40, last one for the pre-submitted. Will there be a single spin-out and will be listed name? I think we've covered that. That cat is firmly out of the bag. The pharma, the immune suppressor, is heading that general direction. Okay, let me see. Louis, my earnest colleague from the Walbrook PR, has been very kindly any questions I've asked, so let me take them from the top. These are fresh off the press, just in 0653 from Gary W. Have you considered using a special purpose a SPAC for any of your spin-offs? Yeah, look, I do invest personally. I've been working 41 years this year. I have a couple of quid. This is not my first entrepreneurial adventure. My name did appear. My family investment vehicle is called Raglan Road Capital, and you do see I buy a few shares. I put 150 grand into UK SPAC. I didn't realize I'd end up with 4% of it. So look, don't read too much into that. I think what we're doing is the first one is a clean AIM listing, quite like that. So look, let's see. So to be perfectly honest, we're not chasing the SPAC. I think the people who make the most money in the SPACs are the people who get in early. That's been seen in the US, and I would like to, as a shareholder on your behalf and along with you, to be in at the basement. Why go into SPAC? I would ask every CEO the same question: why should I buy shares tomorrow? Yeah, look, this is from Andrew H. Came in at 650, whatever it is, 50. I would ask every CEO the same question: why should I? Yeah, look, I would say, why to buy the shares? Look, we've done well so far as a group. Look, bear in mind, the troops are going home here. I'm in the office here in London. We still have quite a few troops in working here. Look, we've a good team. They're working hard. That's everyone. There is renal EKF created £1 billion sterling in value in less than 18 months from 3 little spin-offs. I think that's a good target to go for. So I don't want people going charging, buying, and I'm always wary about people creating undue expectations. But look, we have a lot of spin-outs to do, at least 4, and who's known, we might have a few more. Howard B. Are there institutional shareholders, in addition to existing ORF institutions, who have confirmed interest in spin-offs? Look, I've been perfectly honest, I think funding, what we want to do, there will be a fundraise around the spin-off. We've guided that. It'll be primary institution. We will give a good chunk to primary bid, but you can take it as read. It won't be a very hard one to fund, given that institutions all came in. The 11 million raise last May. Quite a few of them, the most of them there. A lot of them sold they've got 3 or 4 times the money, but quite a few of them are sitting in their original holding. That's what institutions do. The government did do a study. I don't know if any of you saw it last year. The average hold period of an institutional shareholder on AIM is 7 months. So, yeah, trust me, the fundraise for the open orphan spin-out that's coming down the track, i.e. this immune suppressor, will be a relatively easy one. It'll be, being honest, we'll definitely get a good chunk of institutions. Andrew Hitch, if I can be cheeky and ask a second question. As an ex-stockbroker, see capital gains tax grew. Aha. This is done. Okay, it's a good question. Let me start again. Can I ask a second question? As an ex-stockbroker, capital gains tax guru, I understand tax and I understand dividend species, etc. With all the planned spin-outs, is there a danger that smaller shareholders, of which you probably have quite a few, are left with lots of tiny holdings in various companies rather than one umbrella company? Understand? Okay, Andrew, I think, well, first of all, normally you get a dividend, you pay income tax. That's why people sometimes call, don't pay me a dividend, reinvest them if you sell shares. So we're handing you a dividend. This is a strategy demerger, but that is dividend in assets you already own. So there's no capital gains tax. There is no income tax. You'll get them at the whatever the impact price is. Yeah, if that doubles or triples, there will be capital gains tax, but there'll be no tax on the day you get them. And if you happen to sell them right away, which folks you can't because we're locking you up for 9 months, but hopefully when you can sell them in 6 or 9 months, maximum 9 months, they'll have gone up 2 or 3x. Then you'll have capital gains, but you won't have an income tax bill, and you will have no tax until you sell. So if you want to stay along with the ride for the next 2 years with me, you'll have those dividends. So the question is, keep a number out. Look, conglomerates never worked. You had Hansen. We're in the world of specialism and world of multiple. Public markets are hot. Why are the public markets hot? Cash is free around the world. Interest rates are close to zero. They'll stay close to zero because the governments are all bust. They've borrowed to get over the Lehman's crisis. They've borrowed to get out of COVID. So the governments of the world are never going to let interest rates. They're going to keep interest rates virtually zero. So that means if you want yield, you buy stocks, and it means stock markets will be active. So it's a great, I think, talk about super cycle to be in for infectious diseases. But guess what? The stock exchange is certainly a super cycle because you put money in the bank and you actually lose interest in them. So Greg W., disease in motion is reliant on data from the rest of the company. How will that tie up work going forward as a separate company? Yeah, there's a thing called relationship agreement. And the beauty about it is Open Orphan can have a deal with any company, particularly a sister company we're spinning off to give it access to this data. So that's very simple. There's no big deal. Robert Orr, are the Sikh groups the ones dragging their heels? Don't think we're dragging our heels. So our Sikh friends, if you're listening, what the hell he is doing, and let's get on and get the deal done. So trust me, look, they're making progress. Maybe they're not used to moving the speed we all move at. So yeah, look, I let's not beat up our friends. And they have rebranded themselves Conserve. They have a PR company, so it's underway. Adam G. Hi, Cathal. Has HVivo been invited to and will attend the GSUM Summit next year? Yeah, right, GSUM. Yeah, we'll move on. No invites there. Thank you, Gavin Williamson. Yeah, perfect. Steve W. What is the place to secure IT systems? Aha, very interesting. Steve W. question at 6:46. What is in place to secure your IT systems? I'm reading a lot about ransomware attacks. Do you have a continuity plan related to this? Absolutely. We've very good friends. I grew up in Ireland where there was always people moving up to Northern Ireland, people tapping your shoulder, you're wondering if the spies or what. We had a visit from GCHQ. We always remember those people out in Cheltenham, and we have the business cards, mobile numbers, called the men in suits turned up and say, hey, you're a very important company. You're doing vaccines. Any funny on ransomware? Speed dial, mobile phones, and we've rang them a few times. So yeah, so look, the beauty about being in the United Kingdom, and it's not to beat up my friends, colleagues, and family back in Ireland, is that here it's a very safe place as regards. We know GCHQ, a lot of spies, a lot of technology, so they're actively keeping an eye on us. We're working. The beauty about working with the government, we do get called air cover from the government. So Gavin, there's no issue there. But again, like everything, we have redundancy plans, future redundancy plans, and look, ransomware is there. So I think there's been plenty of attempts, and we have a pretty secure IT system. But look, we have friends, and I think the government is putting huge resources to make sure none of the vaccine companies have problems. David W. Has there been any medical issues with any of the COVID patients? Look, I think if there has, you would have read about it in the paper. Have any of you read? I know there's something in the Guardian today or yesterday. They didn't mention her name, but that's part of our volunteers. I can't comment. We never comment about patients during any study, whether it's malaria, influenza, COVID, whatever. But I think if there's any adverse effects, you would certainly hear about them. The beauty about what we do, it's very open. All our volunteers have social media accounts. We ask them not to post too much. They have Facebook, they have Twitter. So trust me, folks, if there was any issues, you would probably know sooner than we know, but we would know very clearly. So I think we're not in the world of nothing can be hid anymore. But bear in mind, we can't talk about a study when it's underway, because the risk if we talk about symptoms, guess what? You could unblind the studies. And then we do ask the volunteers to voluntarily agree not to talk about their symptoms until we publish the results. I think we're coming down to our last three questions. Hopefully I haven't bored everybody too long, and we'll wrap up on these three. Sam W., when the first spin-off is launched, can you confirm for anyone in doubt that the 9 months lockup applies to the spin-off only and not open orphan? No. Why would, well, the open off, hands up. Any shares I will own the spin-off. Any shares the management team will own the spin-off, plus a few friends and family. We will lock them up for 2 years. I think it'd be unfair. I'm not going anywhere to spin up, but nobody else will be locked up for more than 9 months. We may even release some of them earlier if we need some liquidity in the stock. So no, the lockup is 9 months, so we can really drive that spin-off and get it flying. But there'll be no lockups for open orphan. Your actual shares. We like keeping very liquid shares. You can buy and sell them, but do bear in mind, the connected parties, the people, the founder grouping, and any of the shares we have transferred. I think it's only right that we go for the old 2-year lockup again. And you bear in mind that in open orphan we had a 3-year lockup, we had a 2-year hard lockup, and all the connected party a 3rd year orderly market. I've made clear to the market I'm not selling any of my shares, and I'm actually buying shares. Last 3, one more popped in. Mark with ACS. Should all the spin-offs be ISA compatible? I think they will. If we're hoping to have EIS VCT, hoping, maybe, let's see, on the first one. And so if it goes name, I'm sure it will be ISA. So, and that's what we want to give you. We give you shares in a name-listed company. Why not put them in your ISA and leave it there? Last question, folks. I think I'm on the countdown. Malcolm O. If ORF shares are held with an ISA, can the new in-specie shares also? Absolutely, because bear in mind, we're hunting shares that are listed in AIM. There's absolutely no reason why they can't be held. So folks, I've talked for an hour and 5 minutes. I think I've hopefully haven't bored you all. I will try and do another one of these from time to time. I think they're a better format. It's nice to answer questions, and bear with us the next 2-3 weeks. It's kind of maybe keeping our head down. We can't really be talking too much. We're in the middle of a potential IPO, and then let's July, August, September. I think it'll be back to business as usual. Lots of activity, lots of updates, but let's get the first IPO done, and then there's 3 more to do. And I said all done by Christmas, and then how about a cash dividend for Christmas? That's not guaranteed, but a nice little Christmas present for us all to go on. With further ado, thank you very much for your time, and look forward to keeping in touch. And Mark, thank you very much for putting this format together. And apologies, that was my fault. My Chrome wasn't updated.
No problem. You certainly made up for it in the questions that you've had to answer. So well done, Cahill, and thank you for being so generous with your time. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback. In order that management can better understand your views and expectations, this will only take a few moments, and I'm sure will be greatly appreciated by the company. On behalf of the management team of Open Orphan, I'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes the session, and good evening to you all.